My name is Demelza, and what I love about fostering, I enjoy the challenges that it brings, and I enjoy working with the age group that I work with. I work with 16 to 24. I enjoy knowing that I've given a young person a safe place, and hopefully a little bit of guidance, even if it's just a snippet of support or something that they can take with them as they grow. So the type of foster care that I do is something called DIPAS, which is Devon Young People's Accommodation Services. There are lots of acronyms that are used, so you will get used to them. And this specialises basically in what was initially a supported living service, and it comes under the fostering umbrella now, so there are regulations that we work to. But I deal with a 16 to 24 age group, so it's young people that are transitioning out of care. I deal with a lot of NEETs, which are not in educational training, so a lot of the young people are, you know, they can be in challenging situations, so they're not always doing things, and when you're 16, 17, 18, doing things is quite important. So that's a key part of my role, trying to keep them motivated into doing something constructive. I've been fostering, so my mum started back in 1997. So I've been around it, and I've been dealing with the young people all that time. But I officially came on board in 2010. So, gosh, where are we? 22? So yeah, 12 years. It was a natural progression because my mum, and I still foster with my mum, so we live together, but it was a natural progression from what she did, and I enjoyed it, and it worked for me. So, like I said, I deal with from 16 up, and they can be challenging young people. They're often youngsters that can be quite dysregulated, often maybe don't have contact with their families anymore. A lot of the time I've taken them where they've just been sofa surfing, and they've had no sort of real purpose, and out of school, you know, no prospects, and feeling actually probably at quite a dead end. And a lot of them have come from quite difficult, challenging backgrounds. I like to think that I can offer stability. I mean, I always say this, I think a lot of my young people don't always like me some days, but I'm consistent, and the consistency is something that these young people have never had in their lives. And often when a youngster settles with you, actually a lot of the bad behaviour does come out because they're relaxed. They're in a safe space, they're not going to be thrown out, they're not going to be hit or abused or you know, treated the way that actually they can be so used to. So we work through things with them, we work through, you know, they make mistakes. I'm a transition to adulthood for them where they can make mistakes. They learn how to do their budgeting, and they learn how to manage their money. I'm not going to say that I've always been successful, and I'm not going to say it always ends amazingly, but sometimes it does, and you know, sometimes it works really well, and you can't win every battle that you're given. So, you know, I just like to think in the future that I've given them a safe place to at least be for that time. However, you know, I've had kids with me for an hour and up to sort of 4.5 years. So, you know, it's varying timescales that, you know, I've had young people. We give them the support around preferably education. That's our first and foremost. But that doesn't always work. I've got a young man at the moment, and he's very sporadic with his schooling. He's there for sort of 2 hours in the morning at the moment, but we're working on that, and you know, we have good weeks and we have bad weeks, but we're there and we're supporting, and that's where I feel a really good placement, because we offer that feeling of independence. A lot of these young people have been quite independent. They have sofa surfed and actually been on their own, and despite their age, they have formed you know, sort of survival skills. So it's our role really to help them mould and, learn correct things, sleep hygiene, and trying to look at mental health and looking after themselves, washing their clothes, helping them look for work, and just generally being, like I said, a consistent support network for them. I still have concerns. There are things that worry me about every time I take a new person. I get anxious, even though I've seen it and dealt with this many times over. This new young person coming to my home. What are their needs going to be? How's their behaviour? How's it going to affect the other young person in the house? How's it going to affect me, my mum? I've got dogs. So it does change the house. But actually, without blowing my own trumpet, with the experience that I've got and my mum's support, and actually the support of my current supporting social worker, Debbie Tidmarsh, who is phenomenal. Sorry, I had to name drop. She's brilliant. We get through it, and we are met with challenges, and there are things that I get up and go, I don't know what I'm doing, and I because we're human. But we work through it, and like I said, a good support network around you is really important, because there are going to be days when you haven't got a clue, but you get through it. It's really hard to kind of express what I love most about it, because it all sounds a bit cheesy, but there's little wins. You don't always have big breakthroughs, but you will have little wins with young people. Last night, my young person made a Biscoff cheesecake, and it was delicious, and we sat and he brought me some through, and we've had a little bit of a tough week, and our communication has been a little bit difficult because of the challenges he's brought to me, but he made a cheesecake, and cheesecake makes everything better. So, but yeah, that was the small wins, and it just brings things back on track, and knowing that he's comfortable and he's happy, and that night he went to bed chuffed because he was just talking about how much everyone loved his cheesecake. So it is just small things, but actually for children and young people that often haven't had that in their lives, that's actually really important. So the impact of fostering on my life, it's given me it's given me a real insight into who I am, actually. And decisions that I sometimes make that aren't always the correct decision. I'm not a parent myself, I don't have my own children, but I understand as parents and as humans every day we have to make decisions on demand with this young person. And so it's given me an insight into who I am, and the strengths actually that I do have, and the flaws that I have, and the weaknesses that I kind of need to work on as a person. And the nice thing about DIPAS, I do feel, is there's a range of different carers, so that matching young people to a placement is which is done across all fostering, of course, but Mum and I, we're quite an adult placement, I suppose, and we deal with those youngsters that have been quite adult and kind of out on their own. That's really rewarding, and when they come home with a weekly shop and cook a meal and they're happy and they come home, and that's really lovely. But I just say go for it, and it is rewarding, and you get to meet some really interesting people and deal with some really interesting stuff. There's some tough things, but at the same time there's also some really lovely stories, and good people that you get to meet along the way.
If you're thinking of fostering in Devon, contact us today.